Okay. Well, firstly, could you introduce yourself and tell me the organization that you're representing here in Cancun?
Yes, my name is Marcel Bruins. I'm Secretary General of the International Seed Federation, ISF. And ISF represents the seed industry and the plant breeding industry at the global level. Our federation has members. They are mainly the seed associations, the national seed associations, and also some companies. They're members of our federation. And of the $7.6 billion US dollar international seed trade, 96% takes place in ISF membership countries. So, that indicates that the mandate of ISF is pretty broad.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit about the production of seeds or the development of seeds in relation to the arguments about climate change?
Sure. The plant breeders of this world, they have been producing new and better varieties for centuries now, and especially the last century with much more effort and a scientific base. And they're working on higher yielding varieties, more resistant varieties, resistant to pests and diseases, resistance to insects, but also quality aspects, crop quality, nutritional value, earliness, size, and so on and so on. And that's where the link with climate change comes in, because as we all know, with climate change we can expect more droughts in certain areas, but also more precipitation in other areas. And so we're going to need drought-tolerant varieties, but also flood-tolerant varieties. And in areas where you're irrigating your varieties and that water, the irrigation water, is of a lesser quality, you're seeing saline conditions. The soils are getting more salty. So you need also salt-tolerant varieties. And that's what plant breeders of nowadays are working on. We have already developed several drought-tolerant varieties in several crops. And I'm very happy to say that there are some major public-private partnerships ongoing now to produce those drought-tolerant varieties in the major staple crops, obviously for the poorest continents, for Africa and Asia. Mainly.
So as you develop these increasingly resistant seeds,
that's right.
It obviously helps to mitigate some of the effects of climate change.
That's very clear. By these better varieties, we're providing the farmers of this world with a harvest security. There is, at the end of the season, there is something to harvest, and obviously harvest security means food security. We need those better varieties because we cannot move those 1.4 billion people, the poor people of this world. We cannot move them all. So we need to provide them with better tools to make sure they have a good livelihood to continue their existence.
It would seem quite obvious that the work you're doing
Yes.
Is obviously a part of the climate change debate. Yet it's been a criticism in the past that those involved in agriculture their voices have perhaps not been heard or have perhaps not been included as much as they should have been in the debates up until recently. Is that the case?
Yes, I would fully agree with that statement. It was surprising to me to understand that only until Copenhagen, the previous climate change conference, agriculture became in the picture. But in a way it is also not so surprising, because what we have been seeing is that governments have neglected agriculture for decades. We're seeing countries where the ministries of agriculture are disappearing. They are being merged with environment, merged with consumer affairs, and we may wonder what kind of message, what kind of signal that gives. To me, that gives the signal that agriculture is not that important. It can be merged with all those other areas, and I think that's the wrong signal we're giving. We need that structure, that infrastructure that produces those high-quality varieties. We cannot do without.
And are things changing? I mean, you said from Copenhagen onwards, have you noticed a change in the mood or a change in the emphasis here in Cancun?
Yes, certainly. We've seen in 2008 the high food prices, I'm sure you remember, and that has caused a trigger. We've seen some very good attention in G8 and G20 meetings. In Copenhagen there was some attention, but still here in Cancun there is, in my view, a way too limited attention for agriculture. If you go through the side events, the almost hundreds of side events that are taking place every day, only one or two are on agriculture. And so for me that is a striking example that still agriculture does not receive the attention it deserves.
What would you like to see out of this conference and Durban next year?
What I would like to see is that there is more attention from government, that agriculture is important and that plant breeding is important. We co-organized last year in Rome the second World Seed Conference, which takes place every 10 years. We co-organized it with FAO, OECD, ISTA, UPOV and the International Seed Federation. And one of the main conclusions was that urgent government measures are needed to make sure that agriculture can cope with the challenges that we're facing right now. For example, climate change. And I can imagine your viewers are thinking, is this one of those big conferences with big words and no actions? I'm happy to say no. The 5 organizations have joined hands for the first time in history, so that's FAO, OECD, UPOV, ISTA and ISF. We've rolled up our sleeves. We're now developing a project in which we're going to create that enabling environment in the LDCs, in the least developed countries, to make sure that the seed industry in those countries can flourish and can produce those locally adapted varieties that are so desperately needed.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.